Steve Johnson, Mentor 555. Listen, on today's show, we've got another special guest, Darin Walker. He's with Sotheby's International Realty. He's one of their top realtors. He's one of the top realtors in all of Austin, Texas, especially in the luxury market. This guy kills it. How does he do it? Relationships. He's super smart, but he's also super special at holding on to and building relationships. He's a lot of fun too. So enjoy this interview. I think that you're going to learn a lot from this cat. If you like what you see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to comment. We'd love to hear from you. Enjoy. Big D, Darin Walker. Welcome to Mentor 555.
Thank you, Stevie D.
Stevie D in the house, along with Big D, Big Darin Walker. Man, not only are you one of my absolute best friends in the world, not only are you someone who brightens my day every time that we get on a phone call, every time I come over to the PCL. Our guests will learn what the PCL is here in a little bit. But, man, I just want to thank you for being someone that I admire, someone that I look up to, not only as in business. You know, you're one of the badass realtors here in town. We're going to talk about that. But you're a badass human being. You're a great father. You're a great husband. I think Carrie she may agree with it. Maybe 83% of the time she would agree with us on that. But your story to me is fascinating on how you became a top realtor, a top real estate professional, and how you ended up getting to that point. And it was a lifetime of effort. And for you, much of what you do is effortless, right? But your backstory, I think, is going to speak volumes to our audience today. So thank you for coming on. I know that you're super busy.
Yeah.
I know that you're probably going to be texting people under the table, putting contracts together. I know when you got here today, I go out in the lobby. I'm like, Big D, get off of your phone, man. Stop working until the very last second, man. But were you closing a deal? Were you putting a deal together? What was going on out there?
You would think at this close to Christmas that, yes, people will be calling it quits and going on vacation. But no, there's always somebody wanting something, some activity, some deal. Some deal we're trying to finish it before the holidays, and so that's what that's all about.
You're a deal maker, is what you do. You put deals together, Big D.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're with Sotheby's. You're one of the studs at Sotheby's. You've been with them for what, like 5 years?
5 years. Yeah.
It blows my mind how fast time flies. Because I remember whenever you were transitioning from your previous broker, we had to sit down. We had a couple of them, and you're like, "Hey, man, you think I should? Should I?" You're getting guidance and some advice from those within your inner circle, and we felt like that was the right move for you. And really, from that, not that you weren't doing really well before, but from that point forward, when you rebranded yourself with Sotheby's, your business took off.
Right.
Wow. And so I'm going to go off. So I'm going to work backwards. So year to date, you're in the mid 50s on your 50, 55, 57 million year to date. Okay. Last year was a fantastic year for you. Closed 78 million, somewhere in the upper 70s.
Yep.
Okay.
Close to that.
Year before, mid 50s. Year before that, low to mid 40s. So you've been seeing an upward trend. Of course, this year we've seen 2022 as we start to wrap it up. We've seen some transition. Yeah, the market has slowed some. I want to talk a little bit about that today.
Yep.
Of course, it was gangbusters last year.
Yep.
I remember we would have conversations. You're like, there are like 10 offers, and 7 of them are from my office. Right. And 6 of those 7 are cash, And so some of the fun conversations that we'll have today is how you overcame that and how you continue to overcome it, because the market is like a roller coaster. Yeah, we're in one of the best markets in the country, as we clearly know. But I want to know how you overcome that. I also want to discuss, when you got into real estate, which was 2010 full time. Is that right?
That's about right.
Okay, so you've been doing it 12 years, which is not a long runway for someone that's closing the type of volume that you are. And you've really, you don't have a ton of units. Like if you have realtors out there that are closing between 50 and 80 million, and their average sales price is, let's just say, $500,000. I mean, they're closing 100 plus units in a year. But for you, that 70 something million that you closed last year, how many homes was it? How many families did you
That
serve?
was on only 19 sales.
19 sales.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could do the quick math
It's
on
about
that.
4 million
About 4
average
million. Okay.
price.
So when you take a listing and they're under 4 million, do you make them feel awkward?
I try not to.
Do you go, hey, you know what? I would list this house at 3.87 because that's market, but you would skew my average. So we're going to list at 4.1, knowing that we're going to, probably have to drop it here in a couple weeks now. But that, and you are known, at least in my circle, as the Westlake king of real estate. Okay.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
I do have that nomenclature. A lot of people will call me Mr. Westlake
Call
for
me
my
Mr. Westlake?
background, my history, and
Do you tell your wife
area I
that? Does she
specialize
call
in.
you Mr. Westlake or does she call you something else?
No, she just calls me Big D.
Big D? Is that because your name's Darin or for some other reason?
Maybe both.
We're going to have fun today, good brother. Now, I thought that you were going to bring some tequila for this interview.
I've got a lot on my plate today. It's not a tequila day, but there's a time and a place for
There is
that.
a time and place. And I know, and don't let me forget, because I know one of those time and places is the PCL, which for our audience stands for the Pussycat Lounge. Is that right?
The Psychedelic Pussycat Lounge.
Oh
We
my
just
God.
go with PCL
You go
for
with
Pussycat
PCL.
Lounge, and
Okay.
a lot of people love to come and enjoy themselves.
And that's where a lot of
entertain.
deals are put together. Is that right?
Well, we don't really work, but we'll certainly entertain, and we network, and mainly just have a really great time.
Well, and that's what you do, Darin, and that's one of the things that that I really admire about you is that to me, you are a good time. Like, and I mean that from the perspective as a friend, as a dear friend, but also in business. Like whenever I refer you friends and clients, and I say, hey, you need to call Big D, and here's why. I say, you're going to get a pro, right? This guy knows his shit, but you're also going to get somebody who's fun, who you're going to enjoy hanging out with, who's going to take your endeavor and it's going to be very critical mass important, right? He's going to treat it like a true pro, but he's going to have fun doing it. And not many people in the luxury real estate world can be themselves, right?
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that they have that cloak and dagger? I'm a pro. I am a real estate professional. And then you see them out downtown and they're acting like they're acting like somebody totally different.
Well, I think there's an art to working with people, and my personality is very extrovert, but also I have a very professional side where I want to take care of business and handle things in a strategic way and think through how to best help a client through a transaction. Everything's custom tailored to what their needs are. And then there's the side where, hey, we're going to have fun, come over for our annual crawfish boil or our, some of the events that we used to do, which was the Boots and Pearls, event there on the polo fields or at
Those
something
were
downtown.
awesome, man. Why do we not do that anymore? Do they not?
I think they stopped doing them during COVID, and we just didn't pick back up on them.
Those were fun.
But we're always creating opportunities for folks and bringing people together. And
You're
many
one of the
people-
best at that, by the way, at bringing people together.
Well, there's been so many people that have moved to Austin. Austin's been just infused into this melting pot of people from California and New York and Chicago, and I've met so many great families, and they all want to be part of the Austin scene. They all have families. A lot of them are very professional, at least those that are, a lot of people that are moving here, and they want to meet other people. And so connecting people in that environment is very valuable for them. They get to meet other working professionals. Just in the same vein you do, you have your network, I have mine, and we blend them together, and I bring in other professionals in wealth management, or it's private banking, or it's insurance, or interior design, or construction,
or anything in between.
Builders, anything in between. And so really having a team of the best is what I've really focused on.
And high character people too.
Clients.
Like you've been really good. Like the people that are in your sphere that I've gotten to know over the years, I'm like, good dude. good gal, great, and
Yeah.
these are the people where I'm like, man, I want to gravitate more towards people like that, and I think
Mhm.
most people feel that way. And so, what I'm hearing you say is that when you have these clients that are moving to town,
Mhm.
you represent them. These are families. They're like you said, to your point, they may be coming from California or from wherever, right? But they're they're landing here and they're like, hey, I don't know anybody, but I know that this city's amazing, or they know people from their
Right.
from their company, right?
Mhm.
And you taking that time to introduce us all to one another, and then you find out, and then they find out, man, I really like this family that Darin introduced me to, and it helps them get
Mhm.
grounded in a new city that much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It really does. It's interesting. I actually just went to a Christmas party for clients that moved from
Boston.
Boston, and moved bought a great place in Rollingwood, and probably had 6 other clients that had over the last year and a half had bought other homes that had all moved from different places. And sure enough, I walk in the door and I'm like, "How did y'all meet one another? They're all
Right.
here."
They go, you.
So I'm like, wow, okay, it's amazing how the sixth degree of separation, how they met one another, and I didn't even have to introduce them. They
Interesting. Okay,
and
yeah.
it was all primarily through their kids in
Mhm.
school
Mhm.
and being in the same neighborhood or had a friend in common, and so. Um, Anyway, it's been really neat
Mhm.
and satisfying to help people who are moving here, get them to know the city, get them to understand the community that they're in, the value of the real estate they're purchasing,
Mhm. The value of
um,
the relationships that they're building.
and the relationships that they have here going forward, and instead of having to figure it out for themselves.
Mhm. Mhm. And this could work in any market, right? We're talking
Yeah.
about Austin specifically, but for those of us in our industry, whether it's mortgage related or real estate related or anything in between, I think understanding that there's value in helping your clients build relationships
Hmm.
within their community. I mean, how valuable would you say that that is for? I mean, I think it's a clear answer to this, but they trust you. They're like, hey, Big D referred me
Hmm.
to 7 people, and all 7 of them are solid, and they all. So now you've got those stripes on the wall, right? And
Hmm.
when the time comes for them to buy or sell,
Hmm.
then it's just an afterthought. Right? They're
Yeah.
going to Big D. Who else are they going to?
Yeah. You gotta stay connected and
Yeah.
stay top of mind and check in on them. And that's what we've always done and that's what we do through these annual get-togethers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And you open up your home, by the way. Not
yeah.
many people do that or have the
Hmm.
luxury of doing that. And you're probably, and God bless Carrie, your wife, because
Yeah.
Mama has to be on board on
Oh
this.
yeah.
And I want to I want to touch on the problem that y'all had with the chimney sweep, because I know that affected one of your more recent shindigs. But I want to regress a little bit, Darin, because
Hmm.
um, so much of who you are is who you today is who you were then, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
you born and raised Austin,
Hmm.
in Westlake, which is a it's a luxury suburb of Austin. I say suburb because it's only 5 minutes from downtown, which makes it even more amazing. But Westlake, Rollingwood, we call it the 4-6 in town,
Yeah.
78746.
Right.
But you finished you actually stayed in town and went to college at University of Texas.
Hmm.
And like many people, when they go to school at Texas, they want to find a way to stay in Austin because it's such a cool town. But you were able to be here from the beginning. But when you finished at
Hmm.
UT, and
Hmm.
even when you were, if I remember correctly, when you were a student at UT, you did some internship
Hmm.
in New York
New York City.
in the market,
Hmm.
right? In the financial
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah, I started off with my passion and interest was not in real estate. It was in securities and investments and
Making
managing
that money,
money
making that
and
make that money.
making money. And so I knew growing up here, in in Westlake, especially at that time in '91, you could not get a job in Austin in that industry unless it was working for a state fund
Mhm.
of some sort.
Like the
So,
RTC. You remember
y-
RTC had
like,
their book?
oh yeah,
Mhm.
and so I always thought ahead about, I was probably a junior in college, and what got my interest was I was taking an accounting class, and um, the professor had set up a stock trading opportunity. It was basically had every person in the class picked a particular stock and did a financial analysis on the company, and then at the end of the semester, whoever stock had performed the highest would be exempt from the final exam. Well, guess who won?
Big D?
Out of just sheer luck.
Yeah.
Cap Cities ABC was the stock I picked, and I think it went from it doubled
Okay.
in
Yeah.
value, or made quite a big run. But that really, I just love the idea of taking money to make money.
Okay.
And at the time, had spent 2 years in the UT fraternities and had my fun, but
And you were SIG up, right?
yeah, and I was a
Mhm.
SIG app at UT, and
Which is a great group of guys.
great
I
group of
mean, yeah.
guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I decided, rather than spend the money on the fraternity, that I asked my mother, I said, "Hey, I'd love to spend a summer in New York City, if not two,
Mhm.
working on Wall Street, learning and getting some experience, so that by the time I graduated, I at least had some work experience." And so that was how that happened. Was she had a friend that lived in Connecticut that had a vast portfolio with a company called Newberger and Berman in New York City,
Mhm.
and we called him, and he said, "Let me connect you with them." And next thing I know, I had an internship with Newberger and Berman. They're a very well-known private money management firm,
Okay.
and so we set that up. I lived in the New York University Law Dormitory for 4 months, and I moved up there and was a little freaked out about the culture of New York coming from Austin.
Were you 21 at the time?
Oh gosh, I was
I mean,
22.
22, so
Yeah,
legally, so you're ready to roll when you
like
get up there.
1988,
Uh-huh.
and it changed my life, actually.
Okay.
Spent the entire summer just infusing myself, getting to know every one of the money managers, and was
But you
working.
didn't know anyone there
I
except
didn't
for
know
okay,
anybody.
didn't know anybody, so
Didn't
you go
know
out there,
didn't
okay.
know a soul, and
Wow.
and so just throwing myself out there to wanting to learn,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's what you have to do, in anything. But what that did was that led to me meeting the director of research, who was one of the big portfolio managers for the firm. His name was Lee Eidelman, and after spending the summer there, he was very philanthropical, and that
Mhm.
he wanted to help younger kids that were really trying to do something with themselves. And after I came home that following fall, I brought through the University of Texas Finance Association. We did a trip where I think we had 20 students that wanted to tour and learn about either the mergers and acquisitions programs that all of the big Wall Street firms offer, or the investment banking programs or money management programs. And so I went back up there and organized the event.
Okay.
And it was at that point, Lee Eidelman sat me down and said, "I really want to help you." And so he sat down, and next thing you know, he was wanting to help pay for college tuition, and
Wow.
help support me, help connect me with others in the industry,
Mhm.
advise, advice, be a referral.
Mhm.
And that's really that really had a big influence. I mean, I've never
So
had
he
anybody
was
step
mentoring,
out
like he stepped in almost as a pseudo mentor because
as a mentor. Yeah.
you didn't have a strong male role model in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your mom was your biggest role model, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that woman has done just about everything,
Yeah, she raised me and my sister and my brother, and she went through a few different marriages
Mhm.
growing up. And
Mhm.
my father was a Canadian national figure skating champion from Canada that lived in Houston.
Hold on, hold on,
And
hold on. Your dad was a national Canadian figure skater
yeah,
champion,
hmm
and I don't know how I don't know this. I knew that, but I
hmm
don't know how he and your mom meet
mm.
and then produce a baby.
So he was a professional. We grew up with 8 brothers and sisters in rural area of Canada,
Uh-huh.
and he just had a work ethic, to be the best he could as an ice skater
Uh-huh.
and hockey and all of those types of sports, and he ended up in the '60s becoming the national champion in 4 events for Canada, representing in Canada,
Okay.
and was asked to go to the Olympics.
Okay.
Invited to go to the Olympics. At the time, he didn't have the sponsorships and couldn't afford to do it, so he went pro.
Okay.
And one way or another, he ends up finding a job with a ice skating rink in Austin that's opening up on Burnett Road.
Okay.
He comes down as the pro. My mother had moved from Corpus Christi to Austin and brought us and ended up taking lessons
Okay.
from
From him.
him.
Okay.
And
And we know where that goes from there. You know,
Yeah.
he's holding on to her. Yeah, I know where that's going. Okay.
So then they met, and that's just how my sister and I came about.
Yep. Okay.
And my previous brother had been born already from a previous marriage,
Mhm.
and so he wasn't around a long time.
Yeah.
By the time I was 2, they had to split up, and it just wasn't working, and
Okay.
came from 2 different backgrounds.
Yep.
And
And so, did you ever have any type of what you would consider any type of a substantial relationship with him? Or not
yeah,
so
as a kid growing up, I spent a lot of time with him, traveling, going to see him on the holidays, and maybe 3 times a year.
Did he go back up to
Let's see how-
Canada from here?
No, he lived in Houston.
Okay.
He had like an appliance and air conditioning type of trade that he developed and had. But growing up, my mother really was
Mhm.
our grounding rod that raised us,
Mhm.
and my mother's family as well. That's from Corpus,
Mm-hmm.
and so never had a super close relationship with my
Yeah.
father.
Yeah.
But growing up in Austin, Westlake, and with
Mhm.
my mother, and
Well, she was
my
your
family
foundation, man. She
was
was your
fine.
rock. She
Yeah.
still is, I think. And I mean that,
Mhm.
having gotten to know her over the years, man, she
Mhm.
doesn't stop. She's like the Energizer Bunny with some
At 80, she's still going, and
80.
have
Unbelievable.
have our ranch. She's always operating heavy machinery.
She's wearing work
Doing
gloves like half the
projects.
time I see her. Leather work gloves, right? It's incredible.
Yeah.
So you finished school. You had the internship. Lee
Mhm.
was your mentor. So then you go up to New York, and
Mhm.
you're going to be in financial services.
Mhm.
Walk me through that.
So that was I spent 2 years doing internships
Okay.
up there with Newberger and Berman. Leah suggested not moving to New York City. It's very difficult. You don't get paid much. You suffer,
Mhm.
and so forth. He really encouraged me to seek out jobs closer to home in
Okay.
Texas that would be better for me. At the time I graduated UT, I had been dating my girlfriend of 5 years, and we
Mhm.
got married
Okay.
right after college.
Okay.
So there's that aspect too,
Yep.
and her family's
Mhm.
from Corpus. So scoured the market for jobs in Houston and Dallas. Ended up working for a investment banking boutique called William K. Woodruff and Company, and that was a very astute firm that specialized in technology, raising capital for technology companies at the time. Of course, this is 92, 91. And, we're just at the cusp of all these new technologies that are
Mhm.
being developed. And, the internet didn't exist, of
Mm-mm.
course.
Right.
And so it was an opportunity to work for Bill Woodruff himself.
Mhm.
And he was super smart and ran a hedge fund, and then worked with the institutional sales force that in the research department. So learning an fundamental analysis, securities analysis, and running financials, and looking for opportunities, fast-growing companies
Mhm.
from that had explosive growth was
Okay.
what we were after.
Okay.
And so that's what I was doing
Mhm.
for
You're
first
an
few
explosive
years.
growth kind of a guy, Darin. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that. So you were with them for what, 5 years?
No, I spent until 1994
Okay.
up in Dallas working with them, and then I
Oh.
moved to Austin, and I just
So you moved back. You came back.
it was a very
Mhm.
cutthroat business and small firm, and they cut back on the size of their firm, and I
Mhm.
ended up moving back to Austin, missed Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up working with Cornerstone Securities,
Okay.
and guy on Austin, Westlake, named Dave Jamel, Dave Birch.
Okay.
They started a company, and this is about the time electronic trading was really beginning to um, had been created
Mm-hmm.
as a pathway for smaller investors to compete against the institutional
Yep.
investors.
Mm-hmm.
And I had also been very active in trading and securities and technical analysis and learning leverage and portfolio management. And so I really was very interested in applying that and seeing how, not only that, gaining a sense of independence instead of
Mm-hmm.
working for the man
Okay.
was always a big motivation for me.
You had your
S-
Series 7?
And by that time, yeah, by the time I graduated college, I had a Series 7s.
Okay.
I had the experience and the connections from my Wall Street background, and had learned about raising capital and
Mm-hmm.
managing money. And then I got a registered investment advisory, and I probably had at that time 4 other licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So I was heavy into the securities and business, but Cornerstone was probably one of the most profitable, fastest growing businesses. Our niche that we were in
Mm-hmm.
was we had developed our own software that allowed us to trade on and manage a lot of capital for more swing trading types of a very specific style of trading.
Okay.
And so at the time, I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Didn't really,
Mm-hmm.
was just getting started.
Yep.
I borrowed $100,000
Okay. Who'd you borrow that
from
from?
my stepdad,
From your stepdad. Okay.
and he got me started. And I was immediately very successful
Mm-hmm.
at this, and stuck. I would say by the time I quit, I had turned that 100,000 into 7.5 million.
Okay. Wow. And
Yeah.
that was a portfolio that you were managing,
Yeah.
your own portfolio? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. Okay.
And then I was also managing as a registered investment advisor funds for other clients as
Okay.
well. But I
Okay.
began making so much more money in the markets for
Right.
myself that I was like, wow, to be, in your early 30s
Yeah.
and make that kind of money
You're
was.
balling. And you were up. Were you in New York at that time also, or no? You were.
No,
were
I was here in
Okay.
Austin.
Okay.
And so
Were
this
you
is
going back and forth at all to meet with investors or with clients?
No, and at that time I was not.
Okay.
I was pretty much on my own, working independently,
Okay.
and working with Cornerstone,
Okay.
helping them develop the business, and
Okay.
working with some of the best people in that firm. And in 2001, they sold their business
Okay.
to Instinet. Reuters bought them.
Okay.
Reuters owned a technology called Instinet that institutional traders
And that was
used.
during that time where the .com bubble, the .com bust, when it was all had a huge run up. That was literally right in the middle of all that,
From
right?
the 94 to 2001
Mm-hmm.
time frame. When 98, I remember being a bad year, but it was just very steady, and then it just crescendoed into this
Mm-hmm.
explosive move in 2000, and it was so much fun. I could write a book about the what went on in that firm, the money that was made, maybe some of the greed that also happened. But anyway, it's a past
Put Moneyball to
chapter,
shame. Yeah.
yeah, in my
Mm-hmm.
life that was it was really fun, but I felt very lucky.
Okay.
And at that time, when you're that young and you make that
Sure.
kind of money,
Sure.
it also you think it's going to go on forever.
Sure. You're bulletproof, man.
You think you're
Yeah.
bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a naivety at at an earlier age where you that's what you might think.
Mm-hmm.
And when the crash happened in 2001, I had to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began then transitioning to taking the money management and trading technique and philosophies that I developed, and I applied it on a much larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And began working with a group of guys, and we developed our own firm where we were a commodity trading advisor.
Okay.
And we began trading S&P futures. We began trading currencies. And
Did you have like a proprietary platform that y'all had designed or
we
developed?
did. We
Yeah.
had developed our own program. And then we began marketing it to partner with bigger institutional firms
Mhm.
that had the money management or money raising capabilities. They
Right.
already had big institutional
Right.
investors. So we
Mhm.
partnered with a firm called Iron Financial Management in Chicago. They had over $2 billion in funds and were primarily fixed income, but
So that they managed? Is that
they
right?
managed,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, we worked with them for 5 years, and our goal is to raise 100 million. And
Okay.
so we started off with 5 million, it grew to 20 million, and then in 2005,
So basically, are you a hedge?
2006.
Are you considered a hedge fund at that time?
They are called a fund of fund. So
Fund to
we are
fund.
managing a piece of their fund of funds. So they might be invested in lots of different
Okay.
sectors,
Okay.
and we are managing a small piece that would give them a boost in their overall returns
Okay.
through the performance of our fund.
Okay.
And so, by 2006, um, things were just kind of. I was getting kind of tired of sitting in front of computers
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
dealing with my other partners that were out of state, and we had some good success. It wasn't as successful as I had hoped,
Mhm.
um, and had a little bit of bantering maybe going on at the very end with our partner,
Mhm.
and it was just kind of time to do something different.
Yeah.
And so I began to transition into real estate,
Okay.
but I never saw myself as a realtor.
Right.
I always
Were you thinking that you might be an investor? Is that
I
where?
was always, working on the finance, like interested in raising money. It was always sexier to me to be working with big
Yep.
sums of money and
Well, because you had been doing
funding
that for
things.
years. I mean, that's
Uh,
that's how you get your stripes on the wall, so to speak.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I, through my parents, I met another individual who was in commercial real estate and had planned a lot of big projects in Austin and needed help raising capital.
Okay.
And so, taking my background in finance and raising capital, I began working toward funding a lot of big projects that he was doing. It was a big
Mhm.
self storage climate facility. It was one of the biggest in the Southwest United
God, and at the
States.
time, man, that was new for our market at
Mm-hmm.
least. And now you look at it and it's like, God, if I had just bought into that and held, or
Mm-hmm.
that industry is so phenomenal.
Well, but he was into all these other exotic things, like a new airport between Austin
Okay.
and
Well,
Bastrop, and securing
that's a
the
little different.
airspace, and
Yeah.
then as a reliever to the Austin Bergstrom Airport and private aviation and
Uh-huh.
lack of hangars, lack of capacity, saw a need in the market, and so these are big development, long term
Mhm.
developments.
Mhm.
Another one was called Villa Muse, which is a big entertainment, kind of bringing Nashville to Austin, Nashville, and then Los Angeles sound studios and a campus for the entertainment industry.
So he had a long runway,
Hmm.
no pun intended, with him being
Hmm.
in aviation, but he had a longer vision, and it seems like
Hmm.
maybe you were more attracted to maybe to something that was not as the runway was not as long, right?
Well, yes and no. I was,
Okay,
of course, attracted to the big payoff at the end,
that's my okay.
but you never know. Going into something new, you don't know. Well, what is the time frame? What is the incubation period?
Right.
But it's all very exciting, and
Yeah.
because it was my background, that's what I gravitated to.
Okay.
Um, so that kind of also led into working on other communities like Cinnamon Shore and Port
Yep.
Aransas.
Right.
And
For our listeners who aren't familiar with that, become familiar with it.
mhm.
It's what we call the 30A of Texas.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
That Florida Panhandle, that
Hmm.
watercolors and seaside, that, as we all know, is blown up over the years. But
Hmm.
and you and I have had a chance to get to know the development team and the
Hmm.
sales team down there, and
Hmm.
which I was just there yesterday,
Yeah.
as fate would have it. Right. So that is a special project
Hmm.
and property, but that's today.
Hmm.
Go, regress 14 years ago, and you had that
Hmm.
opportunity, that you were
Yeah.
stepping out.
It was 2008, 2009.
Perfect
And
timing to not do
the
that.
world had just come to a big end with a big financial collapse at that time, and kind of the reset, and everything in Austin it was done, and a lot of the projects I was trying to
Coast to
fund,
coast, man.
there was no funding. There
Yeah.
was no lenders willing to fund anything.
Yeah.
Um, the developer, Jeff Lampkin, who I connected with, just immediately saw what a dynamic personality he
He
was,
is.
and he's well
Still
capitalized
is,
and
yeah.
just smart as a
Well
whip.
connected. Mhm.
And my family being from Corpus, I grew up going to Port Aransas my entire life. I knew every project, every condo building, everything that was always happening down there. And
Mhm.
our family's always owned a gorgeous place there, um, along the ship channel in Port
Mhm.
Aransas. So I had a lot of background knowledge, had a lot of friends, a lot of connections down there,
Mhm.
and what he was developing was like the seaside or the watercolor of Florida Panhandle and in Port Aransas. Immediately
Mhm.
thought this is super unique, super
Yep.
different,
Yep.
and at the time, Cinnamon Shore, the original Cinnamon Shore, now called Cinnamon Shore North, had 3 phases to it, really. He was working on the first phase, and maybe 20 homes had been built.
Yeah.
And so when I stepped into this, I was like, okay, let's give this a go. I was hired as a consultant, and
Okay.
so Jeff and I worked on the partnership for the Cinnamon Shore Town Center,
Okay.
6 condo buildings, which had the retail component to
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
restaurants and shops and so forth. And what we didn't expect was we get to we do the money raise, which
Okay.
was one element of it, and then the banks say, "Great, now we're going to need you to sell 30% of the condos of the first building, enough to pay enough uh, that equates to the amount of the loan that we're
Okay.
going to lend you." That's how strict they were,
Sure.
even those personal
Which, of course,
guarantees
at the
and
time,
land and
it's understandable. Yeah, 08, 09 timeframe.
yeah,
Yeah, they had to be super prudent.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I immediately was like, well, I know some people. So I started calling all my friends. I started calling all my contacts of investors and so forth. And next thing I know, I had sold a substantial number of those condos just through making phone calls.
And these were investors to buy a single unit condos in
Mm-hmm.
that regime. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But regressing, you had already put some folks in contact as
Mm-hmm.
on the LP side on the,
Yeah,
yeah.
those were investors,
Okay.
and some of those investors also bought condos. And
Okay.
so
Mm.
Jeff, so I helped Jeff in that at that time, and then brought in other relationships. I wanted to see this to be a very successful
Mhm.
development,
Yep.
and so he and I are great friends to this day. And of
Yep.
course, it took 10 years, I want to say, for that entire development, first phase, to
Mhm.
fully be built out, maybe 8. But
There's
it
several
took time.
hundred
It
homes in there.
it
Yeah. Mhm.
accelerated
Mhm.
and was finished. And Jeff, being the entrepreneur that he is, he's still going to this day. He started Cinnamon Shore South,
And then
and
they've got on the Bay side now too. I mean, we're
yeah,
gonna look up, Darin, and you know this. I mean, you're building your
mm-hmm,
family home there as well, and we are, so
yeah,
we're gonna be neighbors there. But the vision that they have at Cinnamon Shore, as well as, to their credit, Paul Mia, which
mm-hmm,
is the other Red McCombs run organization down
mm-hmm.
there. We're gonna look up 10, 20 years from now, and that island, the landscape is going to be completely different.
I think expect it to be one community similar to what you might see from when time you go from Seaside to Watercolor to
Mm-hmm.
Rosemary Beach to Alice Beach,
Yeah.
just like the 30A.
Yeah.
And that's Jeff's vision, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what he'll continue to do. He's bought up quite a bit of land
Yep.
over there,
Yep.
and now has established brand. And so that initially is what then caused me to rethink residential real estate.
Okay.
That was kind of
Because you were having some success at
the
it.
catalyst toward it. My realtor who'd sold me my house had tried to persuade me to becoming a realtor before doing
Mm-hmm.
the commercial real estate finance
Okay.
side of things, and I just said I just don't see myself
Was that because they said,
doing
"Hey,
that.
you've got the personality for it. You have what was it that led them to say that?"
A lifetime of connections in Austin,
Mm-hmm.
the finance background, just having maybe a little bit more sophisticated background than a lot of people
Yeah.
in our business, and then work ethic maybe.
Yep.
And so I at the time I was just like I was just looking at commercial or residential real estate in a very stereotypical way,
Yeah.
holding open houses with,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
women with big
Yep.
hair and
Blue hair. There
pearls
you
and all
go.
the classical thing. And I was like, I just didn't see him doing that. But that changed my process
Okay.
through the Cinnamon Shore
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
And then in 2000 and late 2010 is when I said, I think my wife and I, Carrie, we ended up trying to figure out what would be the next chapter. And that's when I committed to becoming a,
That's about when we
residential
met. I think
agent.
that's about when we met in 2010.
Yeah.
I think I was given a little song and dance about some of the niche products that I was offering,
Yeah.
and to your credit, you reached out to me after that. You're like, "Hey, man, I need some nichey stuff," and you seem like a nichey guy. So let's see what we can do together. And from that point forward, we've been partners
Yeah.
ever since. And
Yeah.
and we've been a fan, what I would consider a great ham and egg show, right? Where, I kick a deal to you, but these are people that we care about that are in our inner circle. And it seems like that you learned that early on, right? On how, when you were in New York, you went there not knowing anyone, but you were able to start cultivating relationships there.
Right.
So in the financial world, and let's call it what it is. You're a social guy. You're a likable guy, and I would imagine you were probably that way in the fraternity. You were probably that way in school. Very well liked, and people gravitated to you. What do you think? Where do you think that you get that attribute? Right.
I really enjoy having lots of friends and making lots of connections and creating opportunities for fun. I think back in the high school days, that's what it was all about. Was
you were known as a fun guy. You had some parties that I
nothing's
know
changed.
about.
40 years later.
Yeah.
And so yeah, going back to those days, I've always been a very extrovert. But then I remember holding our high school graduation party was at our family ranch, and we brought everybody out. And so I've just always been very focused on bringing people together, creating relationships, and then really thinking strategically in business.
Okay.
Yeah. So partnerships like you and I have, it's the partnerships and it's the people, meeting people like Lee Eidelman, meeting people like Jeff Lampkin. Then, starting when I ended up entering the business, began with Moreland Properties, knowing that they were one of the
Their
best
branding
boutiques in Austin. And
are they still Christie's? Are they still tied to
no,
Christie's?
they had a Christie's affiliation, but I think they moved on to something called Forbes, or
Great group of guys and gals over
yeah,
there.
great group. Some of the best producers in Austin.
And that's who you started with.
And that's where I started.
Yeah.
And spent 7 years.
Yeah. And I remember when you
running
were
the business.
transitioning, it was a struggle for you because you had those relationships. You had the people that you basically you grew up with, several of them, right? And that you loved, but you recognized that you needed to spread your wings and go with another flag, and you chose Sotheby's.
Right.
What was it about Sotheby's that got you to move that needle?
Well, a few things. One, I was very attracted to the brand.
Okay. Sexy.
You
Sexy
look
brand.
at, international real estate.
Which that says a lot, right? The brand, Moreland Properties has great branding here. They're wonderful. But you wanted something that had more of an international scope to it, and Sotheby's, because I remember you were looking at several different partners.
Yeah, I had thought about it if I were to transition to another firm, and so that brand is what appealed to me the most. Also, the broker, Jay Cooper.
Yep.
Young,
San Antonio.
Young, cutting edge, vibrant.
Has a driver.
Yeah, he really.
So that he can work.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's crushing
He
it.
has the same energy, and I think his personality matched mine.
Yeah.
And so with what I was doing at the time, maybe I'd grown my business to maybe $10 million a year in volume. And remember in 2014, I made this strategic decision that, getting involved in the community. And while I've never been political, had a political bone in my body, I've always been very apolitical. I just was encouraged by a number of neighbors and clients to go on the Westlake Hill City Council. There were some things going on they weren't happy about, but they wanted some representation.
Yep.
And
Well, we had conversations about that
you
too.
and I talked
I
about
remember
that.
we sat
Yeah.
down and had a couple of lunches on that, and you
Mhm.
may or may not remember. I said, "Bro, you are a
Mhm.
fool not to do it with your
Mhm.
people skills, with what can bring to the table, especially
Yeah.
related to real estate and being on the inside scoop on things
Mhm.
that were happening in the city, and to be basically to be a role model for the other members in city council because it started to get stagnant,
Mhm.
right?
Well, the city council had always been comprised of kind of UT professors, folks
Mm-hmm.
that are retired,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe at the time, folks in software, or older residents that really weren't working.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
uh, at the time in 2014, I mean, this is 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was the youngest guy. I had no experience whatsoever
Right.
with politics,
Yep.
but I thought it would be good to be involved in the community.
Yep.
Um, Not only that, to learn also how the city worked,
Mm-hmm.
and then with knowing that there's so much redevelopment going on, how does the
Mm-hmm.
city work in terms of
Mm-hmm.
its processes and some of the codes? What could um, some of the codes, of course, were very I won't say antiquated or needed
Mm-hmm.
to be looked at, and so I looked at it as an opportunity to, okay, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought I was crazy
Yeah.
to
Well,
do
I think
this.
I mean, I still think you're crazy, but not for that reason, for other reasons. But you did it.
But I did it, and I really thought after the first term, I'd say, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
And the mayor at that time had stepped down, and Linda Anthony had stepped up, and what's interesting is she had very serious concerns about me being on the city council,
Yeah.
being a
She still does.
realtor.
She still does.
I know she does. And it was an interesting story because when we ran that election, she had really did know me, but
Yeah.
of course, some of my supporters were a little extreme, and
Yep.
I think that was
Yep.
a concern, and I don't blame them. And at any rate, and by the way, when I won the election, it was only by 7 votes.
7 votes. Wow. And
Yeah,
I remember it was tight. I remember that
yeah,
was. And then you had the big blowout party and you said Big D has arrived front
yeah.
and center on stage.
Well, I've stayed on,
Yeah.
but though as a result of my relationship with Linda and then really we've made a lot of great strides
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
improving everything at the city, and there's so many needs, and so it's given me an opportunity to really now become an expert and
Well, and people
everything.
recognize that too. I mean,
Mhm.
let's call it what it is. So
Mhm.
now you have let's call it 9 years or 8 years on
Mhm.
council, and I know that when you've come up for reelection, and we've had these discussions, you're like, "Oh, you know what? Should I do it?" And I'm like, "Dude, stay on it until you absolutely choose that,
Mhm.
when you'll know when that time
Yeah.
is right." But it has your I don't think there's any secret of the fact that the correlation of your business exploding,
Mhm.
along with the city's, this
Mhm.
city special, has been in direct correlation with you going on city council. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was not by mistake.
It's
That was not by accident.
mhm.
And part of that, at least from my standpoint, I know that you're the expert, man.
Mhm.
You're everything real estate in this, whether it's Westlake or the other parts of town, but especially related to Westlake. That you know, Darin is the expert,
Mhm.
and it resonates when it's somebody coming in from town and they're considering you or somebody else to be their realtor and to represent their family. You're dialed in,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of value in that. And I
Yeah.
know that you understand that.
Yeah. It didn't happen right away, obviously. I mean, I would say the first 2 to 4 years, it
Mm-hmm.
was just business as usual, and but when I made that move from Moreland to Sotheby's, I had really been things started to pick up a little bit, and then
Mm-hmm.
in 2 years, my business grew fivefold
Mm-hmm.
to 50 million.
To 50,
Yeah, from
50
10
million
million to 50 million,
within 2 years.
and was number 4 in the city as a luxury agent
Yeah.
by
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And so you accomplished that
that
in
was
like a 10-year, less than a 10-year window, Darin.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
and that's something to be
Mhm.
commended. And what do you set the city council involvement in its own category, right?
Mhm.
What about the relationships
Mhm.
that you had before and those that you had since, from that point forward, whenever, whether when you were at your previous broker or at Sotheby's, um, how valuable have those local relationships been?
Yeah, I mean, you mean at the city or all over?
All over,
All
but,
over, yeah.
at the city, again, we're
Mhm.
assuming at that point you're a couple years in, so that
Mhm.
word is starting to spread.
Mhm.
I know that so I'll interject this. I know whenever I refer you clients, and
Mhm.
even more so then, I would be like, "Hey, here's a guy, he's gonna take great care of you. You're gonna have a lot of fun with him. Oh, and it doesn't hurt that he's Westlake City Council."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, at least what I'm able to do is on that vein is if someone's going to buy a piece of property to renovate or they're going to dose it and start new, at least tell you up front what can you and can you not do, and what if you need to get a variance for something, what's likely to get approved and what's not,
Mhm, mhm,
and or really guide them toward working with professionals who help them work with the site.
mhm,
And so then new construction has become I mean, today it's the biggest part of my business.
mhm. Tear down new construction or some development new construction?
Demand,
Mhm,
demand had for as Austin had begun to really evolve and the
mhm,
market's price points began to pick up, and now this drive toward, even before the pandemic, lots of demand for newer homes and lots of old housing stock, and
mhm.
so it's just a matter of time before a lot of these 70s homes are the value of the land is worth more than the improvements.
And it's worth pointing out we're
Mhm.
landlocked.
Mhm.
Whether it's Central Austin or in this case Westlake,
Mhm.
it's unlike other markets, even our own market, where you have expansive territory that you can
Mhm.
come in, move dirt, start a development, get the production builders to come in. We're talking a
Mhm.
limited supply
Yeah.
of great dirt, and to that point, a lot of the real estate that you sell and that you move. People want a city view. They want a downtown city view. They want a hill country view.
Or they wanna be in the lake,
Maybe they want to be on the lake.
or they
It
just
also
want
a lot of it is
Mhm.
heavy topo. All right, so the
Mhm.
topography. So then they're
Mhm.
leaning on you. Hey, what
Mhm.
builder can you connect me with? What custom builder? So
Right.
I think what you clearly to me what you bring to the table, and this goes back to earlier in our
Mhm.
conversation, is it's about the relationships
Mhm.
that you have built over the years.
Right.
And you've been really good at that.
Yeah.
We talk about, your
Yeah.
Wall Street days. We talk about whether it's college or before that. But where does that come from? Who in your life set you in that motion, or is it something that you just feel like comes naturally?
I wanna say, maybe it's just, how I was brought up. I always watched my mother working
Mm-hmm.
really hard at what she was doing. She to this day, she can't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
She gets bored. And
Right.
and it's so I've always had that just kind of innate, work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
even as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, like, "Hey, I'm bored. I wanna do something." So what I do, I go do a lemonade stand, and in
Okay.
high school, mom had a commercial landscaping business, and I wanted to make money, and I just always wanted the freedom of what money or of having independence. So she sets me up in a commercial land, like maintaining shopping centers, and
Okay.
on the
As a teenager or
as
what?
I'm in school, in high school,
Oh my God.
and had four commercial shopping centers I was maintaining for Charles Morrison, and then doing lawns, and next thing you know, I'm making thousands of dollars a month in high school,
So that
and
set you off now, was that when she had her helicopter?
yeah, that's when she had it.
Talk
She,
about having a mom, single mom that's a go-getter that
yeah.
chooses to get a helicopter, right?
Well, we had a ranch north of Austin near Briggs, and so when she started a tree farm, and
Uh-huh.
at one point, 300 acres with lots of fields, and at one point we had 50,000 trees
50,000
in the
trees, okay.
ground above on containers, and I'm out there.
Different species or one particular
Oh
species?
no,
Or
plenty of different
uh-huh,
species, lots
yeah.
of oaks, lots of. But we had a lot of. We're taking trees from nurseries that were going bankrupt, and then plan was to grow them, and of course that was earlier 80s,
How
but
about that? Taking trees from nurseries that were going bankrupt. How about that business? Okay.
yeah.
I don't think I know anybody else in that industry, but
Well,
wow.
So mom's idea was, I'm going to get a helicopter. I can fly out there quicker. It was really more.
She's flying over different
She
nurseries.
wanted to have a landing pad there in Westlake at the house,
Uh-huh.
and the city was not going to allow her to land a helicopter there. But
We do have the one pad right on Lake Austin. Was that
well,
was
that's
that
outside the city
Quaid's?
at Westlake.
Quaid's house? Yeah.
But anyway, watching her work, having her, she was always putting me to work, or I was always asking to be put to work. And then the Wall Street, that bit. So I've just always been driven to succeed in one form or another, or figure out what my passion is. And today is, the realtor position, being a luxury real estate agent. It's so fun. It's not work to me, because it's my passion. I enjoy what I do.
Think about that, Darin. How many people get to say that? A few of us do. And you're one of them. Sometimes I love what I do. A lot of times I don't. Right? But we have other friends, that are in our sphere that will say that same thing. It's like, man, that's admirable to be able to do what you love, to enjoy, and you get to be around people, and that's what drives you, and to be able to make a great living by doing it. I mean, would you change that?
I wouldn't change a thing at this point. I think I found my calling, and what I've also gravitated to as my business has grown was, and there's a lot of people that approach this business differently, where they grow themselves in terms of teams and being everything to everybody and being all over the city. Whereas I've chosen
not wanting to miss a deal.
I chosen to specialize in West Austin, and it has allowed me to work more efficiently, in that half my business is off market.
Yep.
And I know this area of town extremely well, from not only lifetime long history, the neighborhoods, growing up, but then the city council, the work I've done with the city council, knowing codes and being able to help people through the process. And so, when we said, okay, I did $77 million on 19 transactions, I had a lot of fun doing that. The year before, I had done $56 million on almost 50 transactions.
Okay, so you went from averaging $1 million a transaction to nearly $4 million just the very next year. How does that happen? Without having those relationships, because we keep coming back to this with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an underlying theme with you, and I think that you are, you're mischievous in how you go about building your relationships and endeavoring those and maintaining them. Right.
Right.
Because there's that fun factor of being able to work with Darin, but again, Darin, I think that we really should dive into this a little further. Me sharing with our audience and us together how I see it from being an insider, but from the outside in, at how fantastically delicious you are and juicy you are at your relationship building and maintaining. Because those people that are in your sphere, many of them are highly successful in business.
Yeah.
But they're fun. And they're fun to hang out with, and they're neat people, and you can have a conversation. And I know you've got some great stories, but you never really know who we're going to meet at one of Big D's parties.
Yeah.
And these are people that are in your sphere that you've known for years.
Yeah.
I forget which party it was recently, but I show up over there, and there's your boy Tito.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. Of course, you better have all of your Tito stuff up on the shelf, especially when he's there. But he's just hanging out with the crew.
Yeah.
Just being all American, being himself, and you're back there behind the bar, being the bar back, and one thing about that takes that to the next level is that people are very comfortable around you, and you're comfortable around them. You're yourself.
Yeah.
Where's that secret sauce come from? Just being yourself and not feeling like that you have to worry about it.
Treat people are people. They can be very successful and serious, obviously, in their business, but everybody has a personal side to them. They have things they love to do, or people they want to meet, or people they want to connect with and spend time with. And
travel with.
And travel. Yeah. And so building over time, what I call powerful partnerships
Okay.
with people
Mm-hmm.
has been part of the key for
Go
me.
deep on that. I want you to go deep on that for me.
Yeah. So, my relationship with, some of these other gentlemen that I've mentioned they're highly successful. I've had some partnerships that were not good
Yep.
early on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's learning from cues to things I might not have picked up on
Mm-hmm.
earlier on that I've learned from that what to look for. And then also, not only are they successful, but are they fun? And what is their um, ethics and morale?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
are they,
Are they great in
loyal?
business, but are they a horrible person outside of business?
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've really just gravitated toward when I meet somebody I really like or family that comes to town that I just
Mm-hmm.
like, then I just want to include them in our inner
Yep.
circle,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm always trying to expand on that,
Mm-hmm.
and new people will get referred or will come to me, and then and there's been, you know, deals. Like I said, I kind of adopted a less is more
Yep.
philosophy,
Okay.
which a lot of
Mm-hmm.
agents don't do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's allowed me to work more efficiently and work with and create the partnerships, just like you and I
Yeah.
have.
Mm-hmm.
And they're successful at what they do, and they have friends that have needs they want to help them out,
Mm-hmm.
and if there's a real estate need, then they're going to want to connect them with somebody who can connect them within the community and help them make it the best investment decision possible when it comes to buying real
Well, and
estate.
your partner, your spouse, in your case with Carrie, they have
Hmm.
to be on board, right? And
Hmm.
we touched on this just a little bit earlier, but I think it's worth expanding on that.
Hmm.
You open your home up
Hmm.
better than really anybody else. My wife Kelly is not into, she's like, her being Latina, you've got to,
Hmm.
even with family, direct family, she's like, okay, they can stay for 2 hours and that's it. Okay. But how, touch on how mama views that. How does she, because she understands that that's who you are, that's how you're dialed in, that's your business.
Yeah.
But her
Hmm.
inclusion has to be everything. Because if she's not on board, then none of this works.
What's interesting about Carrie is, of course, we know each other going back to the time we were 17 years
Mm-hmm.
old at
Mm-hmm.
Westlake High School.
Mm-hmm.
She knew who I was. I knew who she was. I always joke to this day, and I always say, man, I'm married to the hottest chick. I married the hottest chick in high school in 1984, 85.
And she's still the hottest
And
chick.
she still is. And, but we have very similar personalities.
Yeah.
And so it's not a push and pull at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
either if dates works. She's always been just as open as I am
Yeah.
to opening up our home, inviting people in, holding events.
Mm-hmm.
She loves it
Yeah.
actually, and
Yeah.
so it's been
She's a great partner in crime then,
great
huh?
partner in crime in that way.
So
Yeah.
tell me, 60 seconds here. Tell me about your PCL, your Pussycat Lounge, the psychedelic
Yeah.
Pussycat Lounge parties, because that's a big draw. And you just had, what'd you have? You had the Sotheby's big group come
Texas
in?
networking event.
Texas
in
networking
September.
event.
Mhm.
Okay. Because you're really good at networking. Clearly, we've already
Mhm.
everybody already knows this, but you're good at networking within your own sphere at Sotheby's so that you
Yeah.
can draw that business. Like when they have clients that are
Mhm.
moving to Austin or moving from Austin, you can
Right.
keep them in that network. But tell me a little bit about your parties that you throw over there.
Well, the psychedelic Pussycat Lounge at my house when we
Just how you
remodeled it.
say that makes people want
I
to go to
know,
the
just
party.
gets you all worked up.
I'm going to take my jacket off here, man.
When we had remodeled the house in 2016, about the same time I joined Sotheby's, we gutted the house and uh, always enjoyed having this outdoor bar. We just took it to a whole new level and turned it into a
Mhm.
swanky type of hotel bar
Mm-hmm.
with commercial grade everything,
Mm-hmm.
and was always into mixology and
There was a lot of thought into that too, right? On
well,
how you designed the bar and how it,
oh
because
yeah, I had lots of clients too that owned their own restaurants and bars. Kevin
Mhm.
Williamson and Ranch 616, and Andy Norton of the Hula Hut, and
Mm-hmm.
a few other friends. And so, not that they made much of any high recommendations. I kind of ended up going around and finding,
Uh-huh. A little bit what works for each of them, huh?
yeah, well, just what I wanted. And so anyway, the bar itself came out far better than I ever expected,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more. It opens up to the patio with a
Mm-hmm.
garage door, and it's. But yes, since we finished that remodel,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been entertaining, and for
Well,
football games, for
football games,
events,
events,
crawfish
post
boils,
parties, everything, man.
birthday parties.
So
Mhm,
basically, what you're proving is, if you're going to be in the people business, which you
mhm,
are,
mhm,
then be all in.
mhm.
Be
That's
all
right.
in.
Oh, I went all in.
Yeah, you went knee deep on
People
it.
see this and say, and they get mad that they don't get invited, or like, why wasn't I invited to this? But the Texas networking event was a huge surprise for me, actually, because I really wasn't planning on holding anything. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
this is 900 agents that work with Sotheby's
Yep.
all over the country
Yep.
that were coming in for an event at the Fairmont Hotel.
Okay.
And a lot of these people I've gotten to know over the last 4 or 5 years.
Through the other networking events,
Other
because
networking events in, say, Las Vegas or
uh-huh.
California or
Yep.
Chicago or New
Mm-hmm.
York or Florida.
And you start to make friends
Yeah,
with
I've
these
been
folks.
making friends
Yeah.
with these people,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they called me and said, "We're coming in, and what time is the cocktail party?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't going to do anything, but if y'all are going to come, I mean, this one friend of mine, Jeff Morgan, up in there in Colorado, said well, I have a group of 40."
A group of 40.
And in fact, we'll pay for this if you. I'm like, no, you're not gonna pay for it.
Right.
So I, had said, okay, then it's on, and we'll put this together for you.
And
And
you, and
so
when you
it
do
was a
your
wrap party.
PCL parties, you don't do them half-assed, man. You do them right.
No, we
Yeah.
we do professional bartending, professional bar backs, professional catering. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, first class, everything.
And
Even,
if you don't mind me asking, what do you throw down? Like, what's that run you? So a party like
it would
that,
be like $6,000
$6,000
for one night,
for one night of just
depending upon what we're doing.
yeah.
How much those crawfish boils that will
Yeah.
last
But that's an
7, 8
investment. That's an
months.
investment in the relationships, and
Mhm.
it's a staple. And people,
Mhm.
and I remember on that particular one, and I think this is important for people to know, is that people aren't coming; they're coming here for the event,
Mhm.
and the event is a Sotheby's event, but the real event is at the PCL. Right,
Mhm.
and with Big D, but there were a couple of other top producers with Sotheby's
Mhm.
that also were doing their own gigs too.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
let's touch on that, because I think that's important for people
Yeah.
to understand, is that you're competing within your own circle.
Mhm.
It's a friendly competition,
Mhm.
right? But what were they doing? One of them had a boat, if I remember correctly. They had a
Yeah, Kirk Lewis, he did a town lake boat cruise with dinner, I think, and cocktails. Maybe
mm-hmm,
it was 2 or 3 hour thing. And I never looked at this as a competition. It was just I wasn't even going to do anything.
right.
But they reached out to me and wanted to do this. And so I knew Bridget Ramey had an event at Pershing.
Mm-hmm.
A few folks had events at high top condos downtown. And I
Yep.
figured the whole group would want to stay downtown.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, and Bridget having her party, right? I mean, because
mhm.
she having had huge successes over the
Mhm.
last few years in representing the
Yeah.
clients that she represents. I mean,
Mhm.
she has a name for herself now. I mean,
Mhm.
she always has, but now she's
Mhm.
exploded.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and we have to understand that your colleagues that are coming in, they're going to be referring clients
Mhm.
to Austin. And we're
Sure.
talking, if your average sales price is 4 million, you can
Mhm.
do the math on that. That's
Mhm.
a substantial opportunity there. So the
Mhm.
investment is just a small portion of it.
Totally.
But you're also
Yeah.
investing in the relationships.
And it's doing consistently
Yeah.
because like those crawfish boils we started 6 years ago, we do every year, and those clients want to bring their friends,
Mhm.
and then it builds
Oh, people look forward to it.
from there. Everybody looks forward
I
to
know.
it.
I was, we're in Medellin, so I was on your last part. I was like, let me see if I can, switch my. And Kelly goes, well, that's your son's birthday. I go, he doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
But that people look forward to that, man.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I think at the end is building building relationships with folks, and even with the other agents. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's really important. I really have, as much as I love people in general, having great relationships in the brokerage industry is really key because you're going to be working with people repeatedly, especially top producers, and then getting them to come look at your listing, or they're excited that I have something going on.
Yep.
this new development, the Wildcat Club that I've
Mm-hmm.
done with West Wigington is a huge
And
opportunity.
what's that average price on those?
And
That you
those
think that's going to be?
start at 10 million and go up to almost 20 million.
How about that?
And that's just 6 homes in one subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
That's $70 million of
Mm-hmm.
inventory.
And then you've got that other
And
listing that's right around the corner from our place with that view of downtown. Again, a lot of it has to do with views, right?
yeah, and then there's plenty of others, but that relationship with Wes and Foursquare is one that took 5 years really of Wes and I just we'd see each other, and he had a client that bought one of my lot listings, and then we just would see each other from time to time, and then this need came up, and we become very good friends.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
we're
have,
working together.
Darren, I would like to see the list. Like this might be like LBJ's black book of the who's who in the D Club. Maybe that's what we should call it, the D Club, right? But for me, I've just always been impressed, and that's one of the many reasons, but why I wanted to have you on the show, because I wanted the audience to understand the power and how powerful it is for you of relationship building, because you literally are one of the best, and you're so genuine, and you're so thoughtful, and in how you go about, not only building the relationships but maintaining them. And you have several other friends that your best bud James Coleman.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, you grew up with him, and now he didn't go K through 12 Westlake, so he's not on the inner circle. What was he, second grade?
Well, he just left for a few years in elementary school, but he came back by middle
He came
school.
back, yeah.
And he finished at Westlake the same time I did.
But how about that
Very
guy?
good, yeah.
I mean, how neat is he? He knew when he was young he wanted to own ski resorts as a kid, and he was hyper focused on it. And now look at him now.
Yeah.
And he's just such a neat guy. And I think that's the takeaway, whether it's the guy that's just moving here from Chicago or has been here their entire life, that you immediately bond with them, and you embrace them in your circle. And I don't know, I'm still convinced that you have a clone or two. I think that you're the black sheep, the one sitting across from you of those clonings, but very commendable. And I want to thank you for coming on our show today, sharing some of those experiences. Yeah. And really, we could have gone really deep on some of the other things that we have, that I know about you, that I believe that are some of the building blocks of who you are and the character that you have. And don't be surprised if I end up bringing you back for another visit.
Do part 2.
Yeah, we're going to do part 2 soon enough. But man, thank you for part 1. I love you. I can't thank you enough for being one of my dear friends and being in my circle and being so good to my family. So
well, thank you for having me on. It's a real honor to be here and to go through such an extensive background in history, and I hope that this helps anyone else that's looking to enter into the business.
Yeah, it will. And when you say the business, that could be like 17 different endeavors that you're involved with, man. But it's all about relationships. And again, thank you, brother.
Thank
Appreciate you.
All
okay,
right.
bud.
Thanks, Steve.